Women's Giving Alliance, or WGA, welcomes you to its tutorial entitled The Power of One, the purpose of which is to inform the members of WGA on how to become an effective personal advocate. The tutorial's objectives are twofold. One, to understand the process of personal advocacy through the steps of advocacy, and two, to understand a specific advocacy issue, the 2015-16 Florida legislation on sex trafficking. The question is, are you already a personal or individual advocate? Have you ever served on a board or done other volunteer work for a nonprofit agency? Or have you ever had strong feelings on an issue and voiced your opinions to friends or family? Have you ever been involved in an issue facing your children's education or school? And most important, have you ever voted? The point here is, everyone is an advocate. It does not need to be a political issue or organization. It can be talking about something important to you, to your family, to your faith community, to your service organizations, or to your community as a whole. So then, how is advocacy defined? WGA is an initiative of the Community Foundation and has adopted its definition. Advocating is educating and influencing others. It is simple, but as you will come to understand while viewing this tutorial, it is not always easy. Here are the steps of advocacy. There are 6 steps to becoming an effective personal advocate, and they are: Step 1. What is the problem you are addressing? Step 2. What is your objective? Step 3. Do you have all of the facts? Step 4. Who are the decision makers? Step 5. How can you best influence the decision? And Step 6. Who else can help reach the decision makers? Let's take them one at a time. It is important to clearly define the problem you are addressing, called here the core issue, which needs to be specific, clear, and limited to one issue. WGA has chosen to advocate on behalf of girls who are victims of sex trafficking. A safe harbor law was passed in the last year, providing something of a safety net for girls who are victims, but more is needed. The following is a fictitious example of a definition of a core issue to help explain how the first 2 steps work. Later in this presentation, we will review the actual issue being addressed in this year's legislative session. This fictitious example addresses an area in need, which is housing for girls who are coming out of sex trafficking. The statement of the core issue is, in Northeast Florida, we don't have safe housing for girls who are identified as victims of sex trafficking. What's wrong with that statement? It is true, so what's wrong using the requirements above? The answer is, it's overbroad. There are currently homes for girls that are safe, foster homes, group homes, even therapeutic group homes, and of course, correctional facilities. It also does not define the particular need for this particular set of girls. If legislators do not understand the specific problem, they will be unwilling to incur the additional cost over and above the cost of current foster housing. This statement is better. In Northeast Florida, when a girl is identified as a victim of human trafficking, the only trauma-informed therapeutic housing where appropriate crisis intervention and wraparound services can be immediately available to begin serving her needs is located in cities other than Jacksonville. This statement is specific. It describes in precise terms the type of services the housing must provide, trauma-informed care embedded in wraparound services. It is clearly defining the girls and the specific problem of location of appropriate housing. Relocating her to another city will add to her trauma. It deals with one problem. There are a myriad of issues that will need to be addressed to make Safe Harbor effective, and this fictitious example is just one of them. As with all advocacy efforts, it takes one bite of the elephant at a time and will take years to fully implement. A well-formed statement of the core issue will help to create a well-formed objective statement. Step 2 is to define your objective, identifying opportunities for creating change. In order to do that, you must make it clear, make it specific, try to make it measurable, and create timelines. So let's look at this example. We need to create safe housing in Duval County for girls who are victims of sex trafficking. What's wrong with this statement? Again, the argument can be made that there is safe housing, that we don't need to spend additional money, which will result in adding taxes or taking money away from other programs, or that the girls just need to be returned to their families. A better option in Northeast Florida for girls who have been identified as victims of sex trafficking, in order to immediately address the trauma of their victimization, we must provide trauma-informed therapeutic housing with wraparound services in Duval County to identify and address their mental and physical health needs and to begin the healing process in a safe environment near their homes. The year-long pilot housing project will build on existing services and will serve 30 girls in the first year, to be implemented by second quarter 2016. This is a better definition of the objective because it is specific. It clearly defines the type of housing needed and the services to be embedded in the housing. It's clear. It is defined as a pilot project to demonstrate that initial expense will create a successful program. It's measurable. It will serve 30 girls in the first year. The example could use many more metrics related to services or outcomes. And it includes a time frame. The program begins in the second quarter of 2016 and will run for 1 year. This level of specificity will provide legislators a clearer understanding of why it is important to fund the program or service you are proposing. An uninformed argument is not persuasive. You have to be very informed about every aspect of your topic. We have a wealth of expertise related to girls in Northeast Florida, the Policy Center, the Children's Campaign, the entire group comprising First Coast Girls Initiative. And whether you choose to obtain your news from the newspaper, television, or online, you need to research the topic thoroughly. And while you're at it, you need to fully understand your opposition is going to say to argue against your position. This is the most difficult part. You need to understand your opposition's point of view by reading or listening or watching news sources that oppose your position, and you need to listen objectively because it will help you formulate your response. There is actually a process for this, and it's called mapping the issue. You clearly formulate your position, then you anticipate the argument of your opposition. Then you formulate your response to the opposition, then their rebuttal to your rebuttal, and so forth, as far down as you can go. This is a common process among politicians preparing for debates, hoping to get elected or re-elected. And it's the best way for you to prepare for that one-on-one discussion with a decision maker about your issue. Step 4 addresses decision makers. The problem and objective are clearly defined and specifically stated with a timeline. You have researched your subject in great detail. You have listened objectively to the opposition and formulated your rebuttals to their arguments. Now on to step 4, identifying the decision makers. For governmental issues, you're either addressing a law, a policy, or a procedure. If it is a law, your lawmakers, such as city council, state senators, U.S. congressmen, will be the persons to make the decision. If it is a regulation, a policy or procedure, it could be the chief of police, the Environmental Protection Agency, or maybe the Department of Children and Family Services. The need for additional housing would be a change in the law, requiring additional appropriations to create bricks and mortar and supportive services. If housing and services already existed, and there was a need to change the procedure to admit girls into the residential facilities, then it would be a change in policy or procedure that could be addressed by the agency overseeing the operation of the residential facilities. You need to know decision makers to whom you need to advocate. The process is the same for personal issues. Once you know to whom your advocacy should be directed, how do you influence them? There are many ways. With the prevalence of online messaging, your representatives are as close as a click away on your computer. And while personal letters are the most effective in local matters, sheer numbers of responses may be the most effective at the state or national level. Action groups frequently send out electronic notices through email and electronic publications about upcoming discussions on bills in Congress. You will often be asked to click here to sign our petition. Even film can be used as an advocacy tool. The film The Invisible War was a documentary about rape in the military, and the film was a catalyst for Senators McCaskill and Gillibrand to take action the way the military addressed complaints of sexual assault. So there are many ways to communicate your position and to influence the decision makers. One-on-one meetings are extremely effective, and phone calls can also be. Presentations to groups get others to support and act on your advocacy position. Use as many of the ways of communicating as you think will be effective. Sometimes there will be no influential way to reach the decision maker by yourself. You need the help of others who might have more influence than you, or you need sheer numbers of supporters behind the issue. How? You can spread the word through friends, family, colleagues, and associates using something called the elevator speech. Or you can convince those with influence over the decision makers, their funders, families, friends, and associations. And you can make a treasure map of contacts through brainstorming. One example is an executive director in Jacksonville who needed to get something passed by city council and had no relationship with the council member who was a roadblock. So she researched his funders, and a large contributor to his election was someone that she knew. She convinced the funder to go to the city council member on behalf of the issue, and she prevailed. She knew who could reach the decision maker. As individuals with many connections, our reach is broader than we think. A treasure map is one way to identify who you know and who they know, many separations from you. It is a technique used by nonprofits in fundraising strategy to broaden the reach of the agency. On the WGA website, there is an advocacy toolkit available for your use. It's a small pamphlet with the 6 steps of this presentation, as well as a sample letter which can be used as a model for an actual letter, for an email, for a tweet, for a one-on-one discussion, or even for a phone conversation. These same rules apply. Keep it concise, compelling, and easy to understand. Put your request first. Be clear why you're asking for it. Provide supporting information and details. Give your credentials as an individual. And include your contact information. Again, for items at the state and national level, when staffers are only counting sheer numbers of responses for or against an issue, the personal touch is not necessary. But if you are speaking to a decision maker individually, or the issue is a local one, this is important to consider as a guideline. You have completed the 6 steps of effective personal advocacy. The next slide is part of the letter of advocacy written on behalf of WGA during last year's legislative session. The letter appeared in the Jacksonville Times-Union. This letter marked the first time WGA was permitted, as an initiative of the nonprofit organization, the Community Foundation, to advocate on behalf of an issue under the banner of Women's Giving Alliance. It was an important moment in WGA advocacy. Now, on to the advocacy issue being addressed in this legislative session. The Dolores Barr-Weaver Policy Center created these talking points about the Open Doors Initiative. Florida leads the country in the strength of its sex trafficking laws according to national advocacy organizations. With recent public awareness and targeted signage in public places, we have more victims self-identifying and being identified by others. When victims are recovered or come forward, crisis intervention and therapeutic services lack availability, sequencing, and consistency. And that results in ongoing challenges and critical response gaps for law enforcement, the child, victim, and community agencies willing to help. There are many benefits listed by the Policy Center that the Open Doors Network will create. It will assist victims immediately. It will provide expert support. It will make better use of existing services and improve service delivery. It will increase care coordination, provide appropriate screening. It will engage research-based assessments. It will help victims develop appropriate safety plans and ensure individualized care plans. It will connect each victim with a survivor mentor. It will provide training and technical assistance, and it will raise public awareness and collaboration. And here are the Policy Center's advocacy points to be used when talking to decision makers about what is needed to implement Open Doors and what legislative action needs to be taken. New appropriations will be needed to establish the grant fund for the Open Door pilot project in 4 to 5 target regions in year 1, and additional target regions will be addressed in subsequent years based on successful implementation. For those who are interested, this case study is an opportunity to use the 6 steps to research and create the information you will need to effectively advocate for the Open Door policy. It can be used for any advocacy issue. While it's more effective done in small groups, it can be effective as an individual exercise. If you have questions about Women's Giving Alliance, you can go to the website wganefl.org. If you have questions about Open Door policy or the Dolores Barr-Weaver Policy Center, you can go to their website, www.seethegirl.org. Thank you for participating in the Power of One online tutorial offered by Women's Giving Alliance of Jacksonville, Florida, an initiative of the Community Foundation of Northeast Florida.